Hey, welcome to another episode of Cutter One. I am your host, Jay, just Jay, and thanks for being here. All right, I wanted to because the story that is the Rings of Power just doesn't seem to go away. It seems like the more um, people realize what a garbage show this was, the more the producers and stuff like that and writers, I don't know, they come out saying some outrageous nonsense. Today we got a story coming from Bounding into Comics. That's where this one comes from. So let's take a look at it. Let's see what they had to say. So the article says Rings of Power showrunner provides bogus answer for decision to include a wizard. This is by John F. Trent from over in Bounding into Comics. And he's right. Right, without even reading the article, I know that Mr. Trent is correct. Why? Because again, as I mentioned in previous videos, I am one of these people that's into the lore and the world building and stuff. I read books like this. This is my copy of this. My copy of this. I know what's supposed to be in Tolkien and what's not supposed to be in Tolkien, which is why I consider this show to have been an abomination. But that's just me. Anyway, let's read what the article has to say. The Lord of the Rings of Power showrunner J.D. Payne provided another bogus answer as to why he and his co-showrunner Patrick McKay and Prime Video decided to include a wizard in the show. The Rings of Power includes a character the show calls the Stranger, played by Daniel Wayman. A portion of the story follows this character's story as he arrives on Middle-earth as a comet or meteor and then aids the hobbits in their migration and eventually defends them from a number of minions of Sauron who were tracking him and believed he was Sauron. Yes, those were the Nazgûls. Um, yes, Nazgûls. Lovely. Lot of leg. Sexy time. Sexy time. When asked by Vulture's Jackson McHenry as to why one of the Astari is included in the show that is set in Tolkien's Second Age, Payne replied, quote, "When we were laying out the menu, so to speak, that we felt would be in a classic Tolkienian epic, there were certain ingredients that would have to be part of it. Elves, dwarves, halflings in the form of Harfoots. It was hard for us to think of a Middle-earth tale that did not have a wizard in it." Notice how he has to officially call them halflings because they don't have the rights to call them hobbits, I believe, because there's no hobbits in the Second Age. But I digress. Harfoots are hobbits. Payne continued, "We also found hints within the text that, while the wizard's most prominent role was in the Third Age, some of the Astaris wandered unknown amongst the beings of Middle-earth even earlier than that. Untrue. Flat out untrue. Okay, that is no. Finally, he concluded, whether that's one of the ones that are named, like Gandalf or Saruman, or other ones, we will leave to the series to unveil, which they didn't. Well, not in season one, anyway. This answer is completely bogus, correct, as it directly contradicts Tolkien's writings. Not only that, but it is another piece of an ever-growing mound of evidence that Payne and his co-showrunner Patrick McKay are simply liars. Totally agree with that take. 100% agree with that take. Absolutely. First, McKay and Payne previously indicated the show did not have the rights to a number of Tolkien's writings, such as The Silmarillion or Unfinished Tales, but they did have the rights to the Lord of the Rings books proper, as well as their appendices. Payne told Vanity Fair in February, "We have the rights solely to the Fellowship of the Ring, the Two Towers, the Return of the King, the Appendices, and the Hobbit, and that is it. We do not have the rights to the Silmarillion, Unfinished Tales, the History of Middle-earth, or any of those other books." Excuse me. McKay would elaborate, saying, "There's a version of everything we need for the Second Age in the books we have the rights to. As long as we're painting within those lines and not egregiously contradicting something we don't have the rights to, there's a lot of leeway and room to dramatize and tell some of the best stories that Tolkien ever came up with." They are egregiously contradicting a lot. And I'm hoping this article will point that out. They did not paint within the lines when it comes to the inclusion of this Istari, and it directly contradicts what J.R.R. Tolkien wrote in Appendix B concerning the arrival of the Istari to Middle-earth during the Third Age. Thank you. He is the author of this article is 100% correct. In the second paragraph of Appendix B, which is subtitled The Third Age, Tolkien wrote, quote, when maybe 1,000 years had passed and the first shadow had fallen on Greenwood the Great, the Astari or wizards appeared in Middle-earth. Now let's just take that for a second. What he's saying here, what Tolkien is saying, and the author of this article is pointing out, is it's 1,000 years into the Third Age when the Astari first appear. Okay? It's also when the first shadow falls on Greenwood the Great. If you watched the show, you'll know that in the season finale, the very first opening scene is in Greenwood. Okay? So, just to put a little context into that. Tolkien continued, it was afterwards said that they came out of the far west and were messengers sent to contest the power of Sauron and to unite all those who had the will to resist him. But they were forbidden to match his power with power or to seek to dominate elves or men by force and fear. Tolkien further detailed, they came therefore in the shape of men. Though they were never young and aged slowly, and they had many powers of mind and hand, they revealed their true names to a few, but used such names as were given to them. The two highest of this order, of whom it is said there were 5, were called by the Eldar Curunir, I always mess that up, the man of skill, and Mithrandir, the grey pilgrim, but by men in the north, Saruman and Gandalf. Curunir journeyed often into the east, but dwelt at last in Isengard. Mithrandir was closest in friendship with the Eldar and wandered mostly in the west and never made for himself any lasting abode, Tolkien explained. By 1100 of the Third Age, the wise, the Astari, and the chief Eldar discovered that an evil power has made a stronghold at Dol Guldur. It is thought to be one of the Nazgul. In letter 144 to Naomi Mitchison, Tolkien also noted, their origin was not known to any but a few, such as Elrond and Galadriel, in the Third Age. They are said to have first appeared about the year 1000 of the Third Age, when the shadow of Sauron began first to grow again to new shape. He continued, they always appeared old, but grew older with their labors, slowly, and disappeared with the end of the rings. They were thought to be emissaries in the terms of this tale from the far west beyond the sea, and their proper function, maintained by Gandalf and perverted by Saruman, was to encourage and bring out the native powers of the enemies of Sauron. Gandalf's opposite was, strictly, Sauron, in one part of Sauron's operations, as Aragorn was in another. So in other words, the way Tolkien set it up was Aragorn was sort of the counter to Sauron when it came to like the physical, the military aspect of it, the fighting on the fields, like the Battle of Pelennor Fields and whatnot. Okay, Gandalf was that Sauron's opposite in his ability to inspire and to give hope to. So whereas Sauron brought out the worst, the evil, the greed, the need to dominate and control in his followers, Gandalf was to bring out that sense of hope, the sense of resistance to the evil, to the spreading evil, to inspire those who had it within themselves to stand up to Sauron. So that's what they're referring to there. While the Astari in physical form did not arrive in Middle-earth until around the year 1000 of the Third Age, there you go, right there, that means Payne and McKay flat out lying, Gandalf as a Maiar, known as Olorin, did indeed have contact with the peoples of Middle-earth, specifically the Eldar. In The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, Faramir reveals that Gandalf went by the name of Olorin. Tolkien wrote, Mithrandir, we called him in elf fashion, said Faramir, and he was content. Many are my names in many countries, he said. Mithrandir among the elves, Tharkun to the dwarves. Olorin I was in my youth in the west that is forgotten. In the south, Inkenus. In the north, Gandalf. To the east I go not. So he's telling you all the names he was known by. The elves called him Mithrandir, dwarves called him Tharkun, Olorin was what he was known in to the Valar, and in the south, I'm assuming to Hadrim. Oh, I always miss. He was in Kennis, and in the north, he was Gandalf. In the Silmarillion, it's revealed Olorin was one of the Maiar. Tolkien wrote, "Wisest of the Maiar was Olorin. He too dwelt in Lorien, but his ways took him often to the house of Nienna, and of her he learned pity and patience." I always want to pronounce that as Nina, but anyway. Of Melian, much is told in the Quenta Silmarillion, but of Olorin that tale does not speak. For though he loved the elves, he walked among them unseen, or in form as one of them, and they did not know whence came the fair visions or the promptings of wisdoms that he put into their hearts. In later days, he was the friend of all the children of Iluvatar, and took pity on their sorrows. And those who listened to him awoke from despair, and put away the imaginations of darkness, Tolkien detailed. So what he's saying is prior to that year 1000 of the Third Age, when Saruman and Gandalf and the Astari are there in corporeal form, in their physical form. Prior to that, Gandalf was familiar with the elves. He had moved among the elves, but in a non-physical form, more think of like an angelic spirit form. And if he did take a physical form, it would have been as just another elf. He would have appeared as just another elf. And he would, give them promptings of wisdom that would, he would say something that would seem wise and would inspire those who he was talking to, and they would never know. It would be like you talk to someone and you like have that epiphany moment, like, wow, he said that and it really made me think, and I realized that I was making a mistake about whatever it is and stuff like that. So that's how Gandalf was prior to the year 1000 of the Third Age, either in a non-physical form or as just another elf. He would appear as another elf, not this falling from the sky in a comet thing that the showrunners did. So yes, I appreciate the author of this article flat out calling them out on their BS, because they are flat out. John F. Trent, good on you, John F. Trent. I 100% agree with you. You are 100% correct. They are either flat out lying or don't know what the hell they are talking about, and probably some combination of both. But anyway, let me know what you guys think. I'm just glad that there's an article that actually calls it out, because as somebody who's into the lore, this has been driving me batshit crazy. Anyway, I will talk to you guys soon. Until the next episode, peace.